Hi, everyone. Welcome to Call Me Crazy. I'm Erin Masto-Pietro, joined alongside Michael Benatar. And this is the podcast where we interview inspiring innovators like today's guest, Dr. Benjamin Ritter. He's a leadership coach, and he really helps people find and sustain the career that they love. He's the founder of Live for Yourself Consulting, which I think is a very well-suited name. So, Benjamin, welcome to Call Me Crazy. We're excited to get into it with you.
Thanks for having me on. I think I call myself crazy a decent amount of times, but in like the nice way, like, man, that's crazy. Like, that's awesome. Like, go for it. And I'm happy to be on the show to be able to kind of like accept my craziness, dive into it a
That's
little
great.
bit. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll dive into it. So I'm always curious because we've talked to a few coaches. We also have a coach of our own. How did you get into coaching? Because I always feel like everybody has a very unique path of arriving there. I mean, our coach, I felt like he just understood that this was what he was good at and kind of did it.
Yeah, because people kept asking him the questions
Yeah.
to help solve it, and then he ended up just making that his business.
So how did you get into it?
I kind of tell people it's like, I don't plan on being a coach, even though I'm a coach. But it is something that I truly love doing. It's a value of mine. So there's like, we'll talk about this later, but there's not an ego attachment to the fact that I'm a coach and I have a coaching practice. You come up to me tomorrow and give me an awesome opportunity in the L&D space, like leadership development space. I'll probably jump on it if it makes sense, just because it's going to help me develop greater career capital.
Mm-hmm.
But, and the story of how I got into coaching might explain that a little bit more. So when I was in college, and this is like the fast version. So fast forward, like, let me know if you want to like hit pause on the remote and ask a question. Just raise your hand. So fast forward story. Lost my identity in college. I was a collegiate athlete. Ended up not being a professional athlete, which was what my goal was. So I had no self-identity. So really just like dived into the personal development space because I was at the time like socially awkward, didn't know who I was crushed because I didn't have a purpose. So just self-taught myself on how to just be a normal human being in my mind, like what a normal human being was.
I'm going to press pause for 1 second. How long did it take you to realize after that you weren't going to become a professional athlete? Like, how long did you try? What did that feel like? Because I tried describing that to Erin once about how it's a very hard change from working in something when that is your identity and then shifting over, because it's not only, I guess, your ego, but it's also public facing, you know, your friends, your family, all of a sudden you're now doing XYZ. How long for yourself, like that self-identity, to understand that this is what I have to do now to become something else? Like you're just changing all of a sudden, something you've known all your life.
Yeah. So luckily, I think I realized that my mind was holding me back and impacting my performance. So I started studying about confidence and the mental game of things while still being an athlete. So I had a nice foundation, I think, in terms of like how to, like, for example, if you want to build your self-identity, you need to put yourself into uncomfortable situations so you can grow. So luckily, I had the confidence to go into those uncomfortable situations consistently after I decided I needed to change. But after I decided, like after I was out of sports, to really feel good, like personally, and say like I'm great. I feel good about where I'm at. We're probably talking about 3-4 years, and the whole journey was probably 5 or 6.
Okay.
And then I still, like, the career aspect thing didn't come up in any of those studies, which ended up leading me down a path like that brought up coaching again. So that was just my personal development. I wouldn't say that was my professional development.
And when it switched over, when you're starting to, follow that journey, what were the frustrations along that way? Because I don't know, because I tried describing this to you once, where I did radio back in like high school to college, and I felt like this is it. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this. And then I ended up just quitting one day, finishing school. Then I moved out to LA because I was kind of over it. But for me, it was really hard transitioning from that, and then also transitioning to when we became business owners. And there's a lot of struggle along the way. And what was there that kind of helped you through that struggle? Because
a lot of people have like a turning point event, but it sounds like maybe you just realized it on your own. But a lot of times we have people on, they're like, well, this happened in my life. Like there was no choice, like a big thing.
Was there anything?
I had a couple turning point events, and like the reason why, so I said 3 to 6 months, but that was like me studying daily, like me, like reading books, and me and I don't know if that's long or short in your minds, but for me, I feel like that's rather, It's rather short in terms of I felt complete. Like there were a lot of learnings and teachings and wisdoms that I preach today that I learned, 10 years ago during that time of my life. But personally, it was just the fact that I consistently was really mentally and physically unhealthy. Like there was a time period when I was an athlete that I was so focused on this having to be my one thing that I achieve and the one thing that I do with my life. I ended up developing a lot of unhealthy mental attachments to the sport and with myself. So it was a really bad place to live in as a person. I don't wish that on anybody. And so maybe that's why there wasn't this major turning point. It was, wow, I can't believe I've been here for so long. This needs to change. It was like this consistent, this needs to change. This needs to change. This needs to change. The one moment that really sticks out in my mind when I realized that I kind of really had to do this on my own was when I was in practice. And I finally got up the courage to tell coach that my mind was holding me back from my ability to perform in the sport. And he goes, can I swear?
Go for it. Yeah.
Yeah. He goes, I'm not your fucking therapist. And so I go, you're right. You're not. I better handle this. And so if there's ever like one memory that really sticks out to me, that was probably one of the strongest. And that really, I think, probably motivated me even more to say, you need to fix this. You need to change.
How'd you figure it out? Do you have any, I feel like you might have some good books or something up your sleeve, like when you have to figure out how to trick your mind to move on to the next thing. Like, what did you do? Because your coach, turned you away. Did you get a business coach?
So coaching has come up a few times. So basically when I was out of school and I was happy with myself personally, I was looking for a job professionally. And by the way, if there's one thing that stuck from being an athlete for the majority of my life, it was really, really disliking sitting behind a desk and working for anyone at any time. Because I never actually bought into the fact that I was going to work for somebody.
Sure.
So if you're like an entrepreneur or you're thinking about starting a business, like look back in your history and say, where do these beliefs come from? Because instead of it being an escape from the 9 to 5, which is really a lot of times that escape is built on beliefs that aren't true. Is it something though you're just used to? Because for me, like I never thought I'd actually work behind a desk. And then, I grew up with a father who was an entrepreneur who built, homes and houses. And like I was in sewage drains, pulling out clogs with him when I was a kid. And so that kind of came with me, I think, as a professional adult too. But to answer your question, by the way, the book Reframing was one of the greatest books I've ever read in my life on how to actually change your thought patterns and limiting belief systems. Okay. And basically what it does is, have you heard of that before?
No. We read one called Psycho-Cybernetics, which is really like retraining your thinking.
Well, it's kind of like cuckoo magic, but it's still the cybernetics is like a guy that, thinking a lot. And I think there is something to it, but it's not, I don't know. The cybernetics to me was a very like, take what you will from the book. But if you 100% believe it, I felt like it was a little too much. That like a lot of stories, a lot of, I don't know. It was written back in what, like the 20s or something.
I thought it was really powerful, but we'll check out Framework.
Yeah,
next.
Framework. Yeah.
Oh no, so reframing by Richard Bandler, and basically all it is having it's sitting in yourself and giving every single belief that you have within you a level of awareness and acceptance, and understanding that it actually developed for a purpose. Like there's a reason why you feel the way you do and think about yourself the way that you do, because it keeps you safe in a way. And so accepting that, understanding that, and then figuring out different beliefs that serve the same purpose, beliefs that are positive and proactive and are going to actually help your life. And then having a conversation with yourself internally, if you're willing to accept those beliefs. And you do that consistently. And there are some other exercises he goes through in terms of how to actually take away some of the attachment and hold from powerful memories. But really, that's what reframing is. And I work with my clients on this when it comes to building confidence, which is the second C of self-leadership. It's identifying what your negative thought patterns are, understanding where they came from, and then altering them to serve you where you want to go, serve your goals, which is clarity, the first C. And then to just reiterate those consistently, either through actual actions that you're doing, through speaking to yourself in a certain way, through surrounding yourself with a specific community, or also learning new skills that relate to those beliefs as well. And we're probably sidetracking, but I think it's relatively important.
Yeah, it is very, it's kind of like Aaron's been getting into a lot of, not hardcore psychedelics, but you did like mushrooms, microdosing. And I think just the thought of that, right, is like very kind of removing yourself from the situation and understanding and giving yourself time to like, what are these thoughts? Aaron mentioned, the one time when you did it the other day or something, how free of anxiety you felt because you could think differently and you're kind of out of that space. But it is something that we're all in our heads all the time. And to have that escape or just that path and knowledge to understand, oh, this is just my thought. It's not who I am or what I'm doing. I can move away from that because I can think differently. And I know how to, like you were saying, like reframe your point of view on everything. And I think that's really powerful if you can actually achieve it, by yourself or with a coach or even with, doing some mushrooms or whatever.
Yeah, alongside, working on yourself. But yeah, because it actually physically opens up, new ways of viewing things in your actual brain. So if you pair that alongside maybe reading a book and kind of questioning and looking inward, I think it really can help a lot of people. It helps me.
So how did you become a leadership coach? And now what were those steps actually like? Okay, we've identified I'm not going to be an athlete. I'm going to go here and I'm going to work hard. How did that all fall in place? Because I think that's a business where it is putting yourself out there a lot and then delivering people the goods within themselves, which is a really hard job to do because you're basically saying, I'll help you get to where you need to do. It's almost like a fitness coach or something, oh, I'm going to go work out with the guy. Like they have to deliver results or they're not going to be in business anymore. And that's a scary thing. So how did you come across this? Like, this is what I'm doing now.
My career has never been about doing things I love. It's been about doing things that I feel that are going to add value to my life and that make me a lot of money. And so because I was trying to become uncomfortable, I was trying to learn new skill sets. So it led to me working at music festivals, working in the hospitality and bar industry, getting a graduate assistantship, like working for the university because it paid for my, 2 graduate degrees. It had to do with me, working an internship because it related, help. So like all these things that I did with my career were based on achieving a specific outcome, not me sitting back and being like, what do I want to do with my life? Because the one time I did that, when I selected nutrition and dietetics in college, they canceled my major and it just was like, okay, what am I going to do now? I guess I'm just going to go get a business degree. And so I ended up, thinking that I had certain passions. Like, one other time that I had a passion. So I was getting my MPH in health policy. I thought I was going to change the world through food policy because I had some issues with corruption, the government, and things like that within the pharmaceutical industry and food industries and stuff. And 2.5 years out of that program was a lovely recession around 2010. And I was provided job opportunities from the CDC, from the Illinois Department of Public Health, from a couple other health facilities that would have been perfect positions for me at the time. And after I would sign on a dotted line, they were stripped away. So I'm in this space of I had passions. I was interested in really pursuing things that I cared about with my career. And every time I did, that was crushed. So eventually I end up in healthcare and I have a 7-year career in healthcare where I end up as an executive. Now, in between that time, I actually received a federal grant from the government for free life coaching. So I ended up having a coach. Oh. I was selected for 16 months of leadership coaching through the healthcare organization. And I was paired up with the director of people as my coach. And I ended up launching a coaching company in a different industry for 5 years. And so I end up in this place in my career at healthcare as an executive, not liking my job, pretty resentful towards my employer, because I finally got to the point where, hey, I'm not where I actually think I want to be or need to be. I felt pretty stuck. And that led to a vicious cycle of blaming my employer, blaming everyone around me, getting negative about my work, pulling back from my work, and then not having anything to care about. And I just kept getting further back, and then investing time trying to grow a business that I didn't care about as well. And I was half in because it kind of fell into my lap. And then it was kind of like, whoa, hold on a second. I'm in the same place I was a while ago. I'm really happy internally, but now I'm not because I'm unhappy professionally. And all I've been doing is reacting in my life instead of being proactive in my career. And so that's when I sat down and said, okay, wait, you actually can decide what you want to do. Let's go figure that out.
And real quick, just for people that are listening, you mentioned like multi-years of doing everything. you don't look like a day over like 27. So you're not like, he's not 50 or anything like this doing the podcast. You're still very young. So I just want to let people know, because you're like 7 years doing this, 5 years doing that and going to grad school. You're not that old. So you're still, I just want people to know.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so I can give, I'm 35. And within that time frame, I've had all these different types of jobs, different career paths. I've launched a supplement company. I almost launched a coffee company, but I didn't because when I was younger, I didn't have the confidence that I do now, which we can talk about. And just have really just tried to live life. And I get an idea and I go for it. And before that was in my personal life. And now, since I think 2015, it's been in my professional life. Other than these crazy kind of jobs that I've had where I've had plaster poured on me to become a Civil War museum mannequin. I would dress up in different costumes and go into bars and promote movies and things like that. Like there was all these different things that I did just to experience life. And I think anyone that wants to start a business, if you haven't done any sort of work in the industry that you want to work in, you have such like you're missing out. Like let's go volunteer, go internship, go start a small little company, go call someone up and go shadow them for the day. I think there's a lot of opportunities out there because all my career experiences have made it so have just been a game changer when I go to speak with individuals from different backgrounds and different companies.
And I think that's something that a lot of young kids or kids in college now, I don't know if they're going to go out and do, like internships. Like I did a ton of internships. I know you've done stuff where you just
working for free,
go work for free. And it's the best experience. It was better experience than going to college. I feel like, because you learn, oh, this is like how it's done. This is how the magic sauce is made.
So with all these options that you've had a lot of work experience, how did you find, the focus and make that decision to kind of do what you're doing now? I know you mentioned like the 3 C's, one of which is clarity. Yeah. Like, do you have some, tips for people that might be kind of like not sure where to turn after trying a bunch of different things?
And so I know this is about starting a business, but I have to say it wasn't my first gut reaction. When I was unhappy in healthcare and when I finally sat back and asked myself what my strengths were, what challenges I wanted to face, who I wanted to work with, what I cared about, it led to professional development and coaching. And hey, I was in a leadership program. Sounds like a perfect opportunity for me to actually go work for the people that developed the leadership program. So my first step was to go activate that, those contacts. I went to my VP, they gave me permission. I started working with them. I started enjoying those projects. And then they actually ended up canceling a lot of the things that I was working on. We got acquired for the second time. And so it just kind of halted again. And I wasn't going to give up though. So I started looking for jobs. I did not think, I'm going to start a business. Started looking for jobs in the space, but it would have been a huge step back for me professionally. So I thought, I know how to start a coaching business. I've been doing this on the side. I like coaching. I like working with individuals. These are the strengths I've identified. Let's do this again, but let's actually do it for a type of outcome and goal, like getting unstuck in your career, developing professionally, etc., that I care about. Because when you care about something, your levels of motivation are higher, you enjoy your days more, you have greater alignment, you build a network and relationships that you actually care about, so you're more likely to invest time in them and spend time nurturing those relationships. And then I thought to myself, well, how do I make this happen faster? And let's go get my doctorate. Go get published in the field, etc., be able to speak at conferences. And I was a younger kid at the time who's going to hire me to coach executives. And that's where that all came to be. And so if someone's sitting here saying, well, what do I do? How do I make a decision? It's, you can have an infinite amount of paths in front of you that you can choose to take. Those don't matter as much. What matters is what is underlying all of them. And those are your values. And those are the things that you truly do care about, that you want to show up as. Like if someone goes, what do you do for a living? You could say an infinite amount of things, but if they all relate to these specific causes and meaning at their core, then you'd be pretty happy about it. So it's to sit back and to ask yourself those questions such as, what do I care about? What are my passions? What challenges do I want to face? What impact do I want to have in the world? Like those are probably some of the most important questions. And then how do those intersect and align with the things that I've learned, that I've paid people to teach me, my strengths and my skills, the things I just think that I'm relatively good at, and potentially maybe the people that are in my network, in my community, if you don't want to go create a new community, which a lot of us have to do when we launch a new business. And those same questions can intersect to help you figure out what business you want to create. And it's like, it cost me. So I remember it cost me. I was thinking I wanted to launch a supplement company just off of a random idea. It cost me $1,200. all in, everything. And I had a company. And so people that are out there saying, if they ever think about launching any sort of product or anything and they think it's like unrealistic or in the clouds, and that was probably more expensive than it needed to be. You can start anything that aligns with your values and what you deem is important, what impact you want to have in the world for a little bit of money.
Yeah. I think the thought of it, sometimes the anxiety is very crippling, like just to get to the point of making it. We were watching Shark Tank last night, and this guy made some weird cheese thing, and everybody's kind of congratulating him on, oh, well, good job. You're one of the 1,000 that, actually made it to the stage and made a product, and you're here. It's not great, but you did it. And I think anybody can. I have a little sister that wants to start a company, and I think she just is stressed out by the idea of how much has to go into it. But when we started our company, Dope Dog, we didn't think about it. We're just like, yeah, we got to do this, we got to do that. There's like steps along the way. Because if you think about all the stuff you have to do, it seems like it gets, really stressful just thinking about the million things that there are to do to start a company. But like $1,200, have a supplement company, or you could be an affiliate and just like not even have any money and just sell somebody else's product. And it is wild, but I think sometimes when you're in it, like, you're in it, we're in this world. I think sometimes we just know like, oh yeah, there are a lot of paths to it. And I think that's the interesting point of becoming an entrepreneur, just becoming like kind of opening your mind a little bit. Right. And that's
once you've done it once, then it's that much less, of a big deal. Like when we first started, it's often nice being such a beginner and having a beginner's mind, because you can only overthink it so much because you don't even know what you don't know. Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah. I think there just needs to be one thing that can drive someone to start, whether you're just stoked about your idea and you do it, or you're just quote crazy and you just go for it. So I don't know. I always say people just take one step, take the first step. You don't have to have it all figured out. So
if people are calling you crazy, you're probably around the wrong people. And especially when you try to start a company, there's two things I would say you probably really need to do before you actually do anything as an entrepreneur. It's redefine how you see what an entrepreneur is. An entrepreneur is not, it's not like an escape. It's not a golden ticket. It's not this unique thing that only certain people can do. It's just like I want to normalize it. I think it's a normal thing for you to just decide to put something out there and sell it. It's basically just an exchange of goods. It's like you going next door and offering your neighbors some cookies that you baked and selling it to them. Boom, you're an entrepreneur. And I think a lot of people complicate the definition, because there are some people. I was interviewing the CEO the other day, and he said, an entrepreneur is someone that is innovative and creative and unique and disruptive. And I go, no, an entrepreneur is just anyone that sells a good to anyone else.
Yeah,
I feel like. And so if we can make it simpler, and we can take the scary bits away from it, and maybe we can get some more people interested in it. But then the second thing is to surround yourself with people that are active in the field, and to start building a community, and to start even listening to things that relate to what you want to do. I can't tell you how many clients I started listening to that want to work in a new industry but don't know anything about the industry, and they're not spending the podcasts they're listening to, the books they're reading, the TV shows that they're watching. They're not spending that time like having those relate to where they want to go in their life, because that could be game changing.
Well, it is funny because when you said something about the entrepreneur, I feel like people think it is that golden ticket, like you said. And I would say if you really want like money, I would say maybe don't be an entrepreneur, because there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that go into it before maybe your business survives and you do make some money. I think almost calling it like a small business or something else might be less stressful for people to enter into, because it is at first a small business. You can call it a startup, whatever you want to call it, but it is that weird thing where you put the entrepreneur on and you think like you're going to be, the next Ford or Steve Jobs or something, whatever, to Elon Musk. You could just do it like, we're just selling dog treats on the internet, but it's a startup. We're employing people, we're making money. It's these weird things that it doesn't need to be $1 billion business. It can just be a very business that, fulfills your lifestyle, and that's all you really need. And it's definitely wild. So what are some of the success stories or leadership stories you've heard from some of the people, if you can tell us, anybody that you coach now? Any
Yeah,
big success stories?
I just want to comment real quick on something you
Yeah.
said about the dog company.
Yeah.
Because I think some people go, I'm just going to create dog treats, and then they sell dog treats. And I'd like to say, wait, how many entrepreneurs do you know, business owners you know, that just have one business? I feel like there's a CEO, right? They have one business. They're the CEO of the company. They're employed. Maybe they're on a board of directors or something. But with an entrepreneur, it's not just dog treats. It's, oh, we've partnered with local, shelters to sell our treats there, or we have started a volunteer service and it's sponsored by this, or we also sell dog apparel and leashes, or now we also have a supplement line that we've integrated in the treats. So it's kind of like when you think about being an entrepreneur, I think we get very niched into this one specific idea, but businesses they're usually not built off of one idea. Like they're built off of a multitude of related ideas. And that's actually that actually leads to greater innovation, creativity, more contacts, more partnerships, and more overall success for your business. And so if we go into entrepreneurship and business with this idea of this is the one thing that I need to do and it's the only thing that I'm going to do, I like to question that and challenge that and say, let's create multiple revenue streams. Let's create multiple innovative ideas that can build off of the one idea that you have that relate to the underlying values of why you started your business in the first place. Okay, that was
no, I agree.
Can talk about the other stuff.
I agree, because I think every entrepreneur, even ourselves, we're dabbling in other things as well. We're starting little businesses over here. We're trying to expand our line. We're always trying to grow. And you can simplify it a lot. Like, yes, it is dog treats, but Aaron, accounting, there's software, who's managing this. It becomes, you're the one man show basically. So yeah, you're right. It's a lot.
So in terms of success stories, I mainly work I work a lot with senior managers, directors, VPs, CEOs and such, and then also entrepreneurs. I like to say I work with intrapreneurs and entrepreneurs. And mainly when I work with a client, it's because they doubt their success. So they have the title of entrepreneur, but they don't actually feel like they're a business owner or entrepreneur. They don't feel like they deserve the title. Same thing as if they're a leader. And they overall just feel stuck. So they're doubting themselves, they feel stuck. They don't feel like what they're putting out in the world actually matters. It's not really what they wanted. So all of a sudden now they're not able to take action. They're kind of frozen in their own mind with worries of the future, worries of the past, and not really feeling they're deserving of where they are in the present. And that of course limits their success. Right? They don't take action. They don't send the emails they need to send. They don't create the products they need to create. They don't work on their to-do list. And that's debilitating completely. So if we wanted to talk specifically, they mainly work with service-based businesses. I do some like consumer packaged goods in the food industry because that's a passion of mine. But in the leadership development business itself, a lot of times people come to me when they want to start becoming an entrepreneur. So I was working with a client that worked for a major corporation in the logistics industry, and she was who I was way back when, very resentful towards her job, resentful towards her leader, not feeling like she was doing what she really wanted to do with her life. And one of the projects she was working on was in the leadership development space. And honestly, she just wanted to break off and create her own company working with organizations and talent development as a contractor and as a consultant. We worked to gain some greater clarity on what services she wanted to provide, why it truly mattered to her, worked heavily on her confidence and her inner critic. She was in this creative mindset where she felt like she had to listen to all the other experts instead of create what she actually wanted to sell. And so that led her to just be in this constant inflow of energy instead of output. So a lot of input without any output. So we turned that completely on its head and created some new rules for her behaviors, which led to some pretty incredible programs. Built some just normal hard skills in terms of business knowledge. Helped her actually finally make a decision to leave her employer and then pitch them to become one of her first consulting clients, which ended up happening because she went to a different department. So we focused on building relationships in multiple departments before she left. And when she left, because she had such a negative relationship with her current leader, she used her relationships in those other departments to actually build a consulting agreement and a new client. So that was pretty powerful. That was great to see.
And when you say building relationships, what is your definition of that? Like in a business setting, am I just asking like, Aaron, come on, let's go out and grab some lunch today and we'll kind of talk. Or how do you develop it? Because I mean, we're not in a business. We work at home. We live together. We do it all.
Yeah.
In a business setting, how are you approaching that relationship building without, I guess, it could go one way, it could go creepy, or be like, you're just really annoying, Bob. Like, just leave me alone. What are you doing here?
And this is where developing your personal brand. No, I hear you. This is where the clarity piece comes in. So self-leadership, clarity, confidence, and control. If you develop these 3 C's, you can take action on anything in your life. And the clarity piece really, really dives into what someone cares about, why they care about, what their goals are, and how they're going to actually make progress towards their goals. And that helps you develop your personal brand. So if someone comes up to you and says, what do you do? And you're able to answer that completely, and it relates to the business that you're creating or that you've created. If you can't do that, then the building relationships is basically almost worthless for starting a business. So to build a relationship, you need to first have a really strong understanding of what you are building, what you are offering, what you do care about. And it doesn't have to be exactly your service offering, but it has to, for me personally, leadership coach, I'm talking to someone, I'm talking to them about job satisfaction. I'm talking to them about leadership development. I'm talking to them about entrepreneurship and small businesses. I'm talking to them about confidence and taking actions for the things you care about and job crafting. And it does. So I'm not going up to them and selling them, but they know that this is my brand. And so building a relationship really requires you, one, to just get curious about somebody else, to learn about them, to build rapport, and then to share the things that you care about. And that's it. And then when you're ready to ask them for something, either an introduction or if they want to buy from you, they're prepped, they're ready, they're warm. They know you are an expert. They know this is something you care about. This is not out of left field. I don't know how many entrepreneurs that they think, and I went through this where I was actually a different brand, and then I pivoted into the leadership development space. It took me 1.5 years to change my brand because people still saw me. Yeah,
I was going to say, because you have to have a solid brand foundation. Like, I'm sure, we could point to our friends and be like, that's their brand. Like, we know them well enough because that's their brand. And it's almost hard to change your brand to not only to people, but to yourself.
Probably harder to identify your own brand because you're yourself.
Well, not identify, but to like live it, right? Like, oh yeah, I like to take baths. Like, maybe that's part of my brand. I like taking baths. And then that it's like, well, maybe I'll get Michael like a birthday gift because he loves taking baths or something. Like, it's hard. I actually do love taking baths.
I'm going to buy you some bath bombs.
Yeah. I don't have a sauna, so I got to use a bath. But I think it's really hard you almost have to like live it fully to be that brand. Are there any tips for that, to like in that 1.5 years when you were becoming the new brand? What did you do? Was it a lot of, hey, I'm doing this to friends and family, I'm becoming a leadership coach, and this is how I'm seen, just kind of constantly talking about it?
At the time, because I had a different business, which just can be difficult for people that have 2 businesses. Then it's your brand becomes a little bit more convoluted, depending on what you're trying to sell and focus on at the time. But I had to stop. So I stopped the podcast I was doing for the other business. I got rid of that. I actually took down a lot of the things that were online. I started saying no to opportunities that didn't align with what I wanted to build.
Interesting. Okay.
And so to that point, whatever your brand is, I should be able to see it if I Google you online, or if I look at your LinkedIn profile, or if I go to your LinkedIn profile and I just see a mess of positions in a bio that's not filled out and no header image that relates to anything that you care about, what you're trying to build, then there's a big issue.
Yeah.
Because
or they don't like LinkedIn. One of the two, right?
What was that?
I said, or they don't like LinkedIn.
Yeah, which we'd have to talk about now if you want to start a business anyways, because a LinkedIn is like you don't even need a website anymore. Have a LinkedIn profile, promote your business.
I got to use it more. I mean, I'm just like so anti LinkedIn. I'd rather have a TikTok account than a LinkedIn account, which is so bad. It
depends what network you're trying to target.
I know.
Yeah, it depends. It does depend.
If your audience is 13-year-old people dancing, then you better have a LinkedIn.
No, I guess it's just like there's so many different ways, and I think LinkedIn. We've talked to so many people on here that love LinkedIn. My LinkedIn profile is like can pass. It's there, but it's not. I wouldn't say, damn, that's
He's not an all-star on
No,
LinkedIn.
I think Aaron's more an all-star on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Well, to that point, it doesn't have to be, this all-star profile, but it has to be your brand.
Yeah.
Now, I know a lot of people that don't like Instagram. I'm not a big on Instagram. I have a profile there. But if you have an Instagram, and I think you get a little bit more leeway with Instagram because you can be personal. It doesn't have to be directly related to your brand. It would be helpful if it was, but I don't think you get a pass with LinkedIn if you're trying to be a business owner. I don't think people go there and go, oh, he just does a bunch of other things for his career. He's not trying to sell me, his business or anything like that. And that would just be my own personal reflection on that. But to build your brand, one, there's the external component. So what are you saying? Who are you saying it to? Who are you connecting with on a daily basis? And by connection, I literally mean having a 20, 30-minute phone call and then following up in the future, people that relate to what you're trying to sell. But then there's the internal component, which is like, I think I mentioned this earlier. What are you listening to? What are you reading? What sort of conversations are you having, with yourself, with other people? Those need to be consistent. And because that will help you move faster in what you're creating, be seen as an expert, know what to talk about. Also, it leads to opportunities, I think, too. If you find a podcast that relates to your brand, you go send them a message and go try to guest on the podcast.
Was there anything that you ever had, like the imposter syndrome going through this at all? Like, did that ever spark up when you were going to changing your brand?
I think imposter syndrome comes up all the time. It doesn't matter how successful you are. There's always someone that's more successful.
Yeah.
And as a business owner, it's really easy to be scrolling on social media or be listening to someone and compare yourself to them. And that's why it's really important to consistently tell yourself that you are unique and whatever you're offering is unique just by definition, because it's coming from you and not anybody else. But yeah, imposter syndrome comes up a lot, which is why I think I focus so much on confidence in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you felt that way too, but it's a constant conversation.
Yeah.
It's not something that ever really stops. It gets a little softer.
I think at first, I think there was a lot of, not imposter syndrome, but I didn't feel like it was mine. Like the company was ours, right? Like it felt like, oh yeah, with this thing, like there wasn't a lot of confidence behind it because we weren't maybe confident in what we were doing yet, but we were still moving forward. And eventually became more confident we're doing better things and you don't understand the business more. So I think it's also that time as well. Just as it passes, you understand like, okay, like I'm fine. Like we're doing the right thing.
Now you feel like it's yours, right?
Well, no, now it feels like, you
More
can
real.
talk to it better than before because we would do farmers markets. And I think that was our biggest win, but also maybe biggest annoyance sometimes, but we would do it every Saturday for, I think, over a year in our first year of business. But that's how we became friends with a lot of customers and understood what they wanted and understood how we could speak better to the brand and better to the company. So yeah.
It almost,
it like helped us. It
we were
trained
living
us.
our personal brand. We had to. We were there.
Yeah, we were there every morning.
So Benjamin, earlier you were mentioning if you surround yourself by people who call you crazy, it might not be a good idea as an entrepreneur because you have to take those risks. But our podcast, Call Me Crazy, we always ask, what is your Call Me Crazy story? So maybe once you did surround yourself by someone that called you crazy, and what was that story when you kind of did that wild thing?
I know I kind of had a conflicting point because I mentioned you want to create a community that supports you and doesn't call you crazy and doesn't knock you down, which is what a lot of people that start as an entrepreneur need, end up having to change their friends and their social circles and actually distance themselves from family sometimes because people don't always understand what you're trying to build. They do call you crazy, which is why then it's helpful to then meet people in the industry that don't call you crazy. They go, you're on the right track. You're doing it great. Because it's just that little extra bit of support that helps with the imposter syndrome and such. But people have called me crazy a decent amount, especially just getting into the coaching space. I've been in the coaching space now for 10 years in different ways. And I can't tell you how many family functions I've been at and how many holiday parties I've been at where I go, people pay you to what? Wait, you're doing, huh? And this is not new, by the way. When I did my MBA in entrepreneurial management, they're like, what's that? What's entrepreneurial? Why are you going to school to learn how to be an entrepreneur? That doesn't make any sense. And it was just like literally my whole life. Wait, you want to be a soccer player? What? Are you crazy? You're crazy. So I think it's just been a constant theme throughout my whole life. I don't think I have one specific story, But with this business, it really